Paul Heyman is gone. The bloodline is fractured. Solo Psycho is running his own rogue version of the family. And into that vacuum, according to a backstage report making the rounds right now, walked a WWE Hall of Famer who has been part of this family's story since before most of the current roster was even born. Welcome back to Wrestling Stands, the channel that tracks every backstage report worth taking seriously, and today we have one that, if accurate, would represent one of the most significant additions to the bloodline structure in the entire history of this storyline. Because Rikishi, Hall of Famer, former dominant force in his own right, and the man whose real-world family connections give the Anoa'i dynasty's mythology its actual foundation, reportedly approached Roman Reigns backstage at Raw and said 3 words that could change everything. "I want in." Let's break down exactly why this matters, why the timing is so significant, and what it would mean for every other thread currently running through this saga. Quick favor before we get into it, if you enjoy this kind of content, please smash that like button and hit subscribe. Over 98% of viewers watch without subscribing. It's totally free for you, but it means the world to us and helps the channel grow. Already subscribed? You're absolutely brilliant, thank you. Alright, let's get into the video. Before we go any further, let's be properly careful about what we are working with here. This is a backstage report, credible enough to take seriously, specific enough to analyze meaningfully, but not an official WWE announcement or confirmed creative direction. We treat that distinction with respect on this channel. What we can do is examine why this particular pitch, at this particular moment, makes an enormous amount of sense given everything currently happening within the bloodline structure, and why, if it happens, it would represent one of the smartest creative decisions available to WWE right now. Let's start with the vacuum that makes this pitch so timely. Paul Heyman's absence from the bloodline's day-to-day operations, following the accidental spear that put him on the canvas courtesy of Braun Breaker, an incident we covered extensively at the time, has left Roman Reigns without the strategic counsel that defined the most successful period of his championship reign. Heyman was never simply a mouthpiece. He was the architect of language, the manager of perception, the man who translated Roman's authority into narrative terms that the entire WWE universe could understand and respond to. His absence is not a minor inconvenience. It is the removal of one of the most important structural pillars the bloodline's success has ever rested on. And the bloodline that exists right now, without Heyman, is a faction in genuine crisis. Solo Psycho is running his own rogue version of the family, a direct, ongoing challenge to Roman's authority that we have tracked across multiple videos, from the stolen Eula Fowler to the catering table beatdown to the most recent ultimatum delivered through Jacob Fatu. The Usos' loyalty has been visibly strained by Roman's handling of Fatu's integration, the yes men comment, the audible dismissal, the empathy trap. Jacob Fatu's own ultimate loyalty configuration remains genuinely uncertain, with speculation about whether his allegiance has begun extending toward the Usos rather than remaining exclusively directed at Roman. This is not a bloodline that needs another enforcer. It has Jacob Fatu, and the questions about his deployment have been extensively covered already. This is a bloodline that needs exactly what Heyman used to provide and currently lacks: wisdom, strategic counsel, a voice capable of seeing the entire chessboard rather than simply executing the next individual move. Now let's talk about why Rikishi specifically is the right answer to that vacuum, because the analysis correctly identifies something crucial about what makes this pitch so much more interesting than simply finding a replacement mouthpiece. Rikishi is not Paul Heyman. He cannot be Paul Heyman, and attempting to recreate that exact dynamic with a different performer would almost certainly fail to capture whatever made the original relationship work. What Rikishi offers is something fundamentally different, and arguably more valuable given the bloodline's current configuration. Heyman's relationship with Roman was built on a specific, carefully maintained power dynamic. The subservient genius, the advisor whose brilliance was always in service of Roman's authority, never in competition with it. Heyman could counsel, could strategize, could manage perception, but the entire relationship was built around Roman's position at the top remaining absolutely unquestioned. Heyman validated Roman's supremacy. He did not challenge it. Rikishi, as the report frames it, would operate entirely differently, as an equal, as an elder within the actual family, not the storyline family, the real bloodline that gives this entire saga its name and its emotional foundation. That distinction matters enormously, because an elder does not need to defer to Roman's authority the way Heyman's character always did. Rikishi could tell Roman Reigns the harsh truth without fear, precisely because his standing within the family does not depend on Roman's continued approval the way Heyman's professional position always implicitly did. Think about what that dynamic could provide at exactly this moment in the story. We have spent multiple videos documenting Roman's pattern of surrounding himself with people who do not question him. The explicit no yes men needed framing that, ironically, describes exactly the kind of unquestioning loyalty Jacob Thatcher provides while simultaneously claiming to reject it. Roman Reigns, across this entire saga, has demonstrated a consistent pattern of dismissing concerns rather than genuinely engaging with them. The I called an audible moment, the redirect toward LA Knight rather than addressing Jimmy's actual question about Thatcher. A Rikishi positioned as an equal and an elder, capable of pushing back on Roman without fear of consequence, introduces exactly the variable this story has been missing. Someone who could tell Roman, directly and without the institutional vulnerability that makes Jimmy and Jiz's concern so easy to dismiss, that his handling of the Usos has created genuine internal damage. Someone who standing within the actual family tree makes his perspective impossible for Roman to wave away with an audible and a walkout. That is not a Wiseman in the Heyman mold. That is something the bloodline genuinely needs and currently does not have: internal accountability. The gravitational pull theory regarding the Usos deserves serious consideration, because it identifies something the entire faction's recent internal tension has been missing: a unifying force that operates above the current power struggle rather than within it. Jimmy and Jiz's strained relationship with Roman is not really about Rikishi at all. It is about Jacob Thatcher's positioning, about diminished respect, about promises of equality that have not been honored. Rikishi entering the picture does not directly resolve any of those specific grievances. But what Rikishi's presence could do is remind everyone involved, Roman, Jimmy, G, even Jacob Thatcher, that they are all standing inside something larger than the current political configuration. The Anoa'i family, as a bloodline, predates every individual conflict currently playing out within it. Rikishi, as one of the most significant living connections to that broader family history, carries a symbolic weight that operates independently of who currently holds favor or standing within Roman's specific structure. If Jimmy and Jizz see Rikishi, their actual family elder, not a hired strategic advisor but blood, standing alongside Roman, the calculation about where their own loyalty belongs shifts. Not because Rikishi tells them to fall in line, but because his presence refrains the entire conflict from a power struggle between cousins into something that touches the foundational identity all of them share. That is the gravitational pull the analysis identifies, and it is a genuinely sophisticated piece of potential storytelling, using blood relation rather than institutional authority to reconsolidate a fracturing structure. The Riyadh consolidation angle is where this theory becomes most strategically significant heading into the immediate future. With Night of Champions approaching and Solo Siko's rogue bloodline representing an active, ongoing threat to Roman's authority, having Rikishi visibly flank Roman at that event would send an unmistakable message, not just to Solo, but to the entire WWE universe and every member of the bloodline's extended orbit. The original family, reinforced by its most significant living elder, consolidating to take back control from the breakaway faction Solo has built. That image, Roman Reigns, the Usos, Jacob Thatcher, and now Rikishi, standing together as a genuinely unified institution rather than a faction held together by uncertain individual loyalties, would represent the most powerful visual statement WWE could make about which version of the bloodline holds legitimate authority. Solo's rogue faction, however much chaos and disruption it has managed to generate, would suddenly be facing not just Roman's personal authority but the weight of the entire family's actual elder structure standing in opposition to his rebel lion. Let's talk about the risk this development would carry as well, because no addition to a faction this complicated comes without genuine creative challenges. Rikishi entering the bloodline structure raises the stakes of every existing internal tension. If he is genuinely positioned as someone capable of telling Roman uncomfortable truths, the story has to actually deliver on that promise. Rikishi cannot simply become another voice of validation dressed up in the language of independence. If his presence is meant to provide the Usos with a reason to fully recommit to Roman's structure, the story has to handle that reconciliation with enough care that it does not simply erase the legitimate grievances we have spent weeks documenting. Done well, Rikishi's addition could be the master stroke that finally resolves the internal bloodline tension in a way that feels earned rather than convenient. Done poorly, it could become a shortcut that papers over genuine character development with the simple invocation of family loyalty, undermining everything Jimmy and Jiz's independence arcs have built toward. Here is where this lands. Paul Heyman's absence created a vacuum that the bloodline, in its current fractured and contested state, desperately needs filled. Rikishi's reported pitch, "I want in," offers something genuinely different from what Heyman provided, and potentially exactly what this specific moment in the story requires. Not another voice of validation, but a genuine elder capable of holding Roman accountable while simultaneously providing the gravitational pull that could pull the Usos back into full alignment ahead of the consolidation this faction needs heading into Riyadh. If this report is accurate and WWE pursues this direction, the Bloodline saga gains a dimension it has never previously had: genuine family elder authority operating alongside Roman's institutional power, rather than purely in service of it. Whether that changes the trajectory of Roman's handling of Jimmy and G, whether it provides the internal accountability this faction has been missing throughout this entire arc, or whether it simply adds another voice to a structure that already has more competing interests than it can currently manage, that is the question Night of Champions and everything beyond it will eventually answer. Rikishi wants in. The Bloodline has never needed a Wiseman more than it does right now. Thank you so much for watching. Wrestling Stands family means everything, as always. We'll see you in the next one.